My name is Dr. Michael Brown, and this is 3 Words, a bite-sized podcast about the simple and yet extremely strategic choices that all of us can make in order to feel fully alive. Today in the studio is my friend Kathy Wilhelm, and we're going to talk about this notion of embracing your season. We kind of tease out and explain the 4 seasons of a human being's life, and then we actually give tips and practical to-dos in each of those seasons to continue to grow to the next season, to evolve into the next season while being right where we are. It is an honor to have someone who's in the 4th season of their life teaching us, mentoring us, for those who are younger, to really continue to become the very best version of ourselves. Enjoy this episode. Listen in. Kathy Wilhelm, my friend and colleague and honestly mentor, I am so pleased to have you in the 3 Words podcast studio for the first time.
I am excited to be here. This is awesome.
On our 3 Words podcast episode, the second time. So I think what I learned today is you were actually episode number 15. We're now past 150. So it has been a while since we have sat together in this space, and yet we spend a lot of time together on a regular basis doing a lot of cool things.
We do.
But with that said, because you were just last on episode 15, there's so many new viewers and listeners and podcast followers who are like, I don't know Kathy Wilhelm. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, Michael, thank you so much for having me here today. The first thing I will tell you is that I am that much older than I was in episode 15. So I bring that to the table today. But I am a wife, I am a mother, I am a grandmother, and I heavily invest in those relationships. I am a friend, I am a best friend, I am a Christian, and I get to say a DMB coach, which has broadened my horizons and filled my life. So all of that is awesome. And my sister and I have had the opportunity to build a full-time business and career that is now going 35 years strong. So all of those challenges, all of those possibilities, all of that wealth of relationship that has come with that, and knowledge about building a business and maintaining relationship with clients, all of that comes to the table too. So that's who I am.
I love having you with us today, and I'm excited to have our viewers and listeners learn from your wisdom and your experience, and to really lean in as we have a conversation about these 3 words.
Embrace your season.
Embrace your season. Now, some might be thinking, well, I don't like fall, I like winter, maybe I like spring or summer. We're not talking about those kind of these seasons. We're talking about the seasons of a person's life. And one of the things that we've done here at D&B Coaching is conceptualize what I call the 4 seasons of a human being's life. And obviously, I find myself right in the middle of the 3rd season. You, as you describe even off camera, have 1 foot in the 3rd season and 1 foot in the 4th season.
I do.
But before we can really talk about embracing your season, let me take just a few minutes and talk about understanding what each of those seasons are. So the way we've conceptualized it is 4 seasons of a human being's life. Season 1 is the season of identity. Season 2, the season of investigation. Season 3, the season of influence. And then finally, and 4th, the season of investment. So
I love that.
The best way to kind of, at least to break out the time frames, would be 0 to 20. Is the season of identity. It's that time in your life where you begin to understand, who am I? In fact, we just did an episode with Paul McDonald on who am I, answering that fundamental question of identity, feeling good in your own skin, understanding your personality, and what makes me me. Then there's the 2nd season of life, which is a season of investigation, where for many of us, we think about career, and we think about vocation, we think about, what am I going to do for a job? What is going to be my profession? What is going to be my career? And I would just say to folks who find themselves in the season of investigation to take their time, because you have 20 years to figure it out. It's investigating, trying this, trying that. The average human being has anywhere between 6 and 8 careers or jobs in that 2nd season of life. So don't land the plane too quickly. Then there's the 3rd season. It is the season of influence. And I love being in the season of influence, right in the middle of the season of influence, where I am doing only the things that I should be doing. I have found that sweet spot. I have found that that place in my life where it's like, I know me, I like me, I've investigated, but now I know my core values and what is most important to me, and I'm going to do those things that are in connection and in direct correlation to those core values. And let me just say as well, if I can interject, how we build in each of those seasons as you're listening in. As we build in each of those seasons, they build upon each other. Because you'll meet sometimes people in their 50s and 60s and 70s, you feel like, wow, they're still trying to find or discover their identity. They're still stuck back in season number one. And so I think as you really invest in season one, you then can progress into season two. You land in season three for that season of influence. And then comes this really precious season. It's the season of investment. It's where from 60 to 70 to 80 to 90, for some of us 100, maybe 110 years old.
I'm up for that plan.
I would love it too. It's when you're investing in the next generation. It's when you're investing and giving back all that wisdom and you're sharing the experiences as you're even doing today. You're very, very early on in the season of investment. And yet it's a beautiful season, but so many people, Kathy, squander that season. They just say, I've arrived, I've retired, and now I'm just going to sit on a bench or a golf cart or a beach chair and just soak in the sun, which is not a bad thing. I would like a little bit more sun in this, where I live in this area of the country. But yet the reality is there's so much to give, and oftentimes we don't make an investment because we spend the fourth season of our life selfish. So that's my overview. That's a little bit of encouragement through there. Identity, followed by investigation, followed by influence, and then obviously round out our lives with the season of investment. So those are the seasons, but that's not the conversation. The conversation is embrace your season, the season where you find yourself today. So why are these three words so very important to you? My conversation with Kathy is going so very well, but I do want to hit pause just for a moment and say to you, regardless of what season of life you find yourself in today, I want you to share this particular episode with someone who is not in your season of life and someone who is in your season of life, so that together as a global community, we can continue to grow. With that said, now back to the episode.
Because I think it gives us a chance to break life down into components. And if you are in a growth mindset, I so hear what you're saying, Michael, about not sitting down on the sideline in the fourth season. And in order to do that successfully, you need to do the work of the first three, right?
Indeed.
But having a growth mindset means this is also a time when I can grow, develop, flourish, become more than I was at the beginning of that season. And so that growth mindset, I think, is very important. So many people see life as a trajectory of up the mountain and down, right?
For sure.
And I'm just going to coast. I'm going to coast in my career. I'm going to coast in my relationships. But if we embrace everyone to grow to our fullest potential, the line doesn't go like this. The line goes like this. And we continue to get better. And in getting better, we bring more to the table for others.
Wouldn't you say, I love that. And wouldn't you say that oftentimes people who find themselves in any particular season sometimes wish they were in another season? You know, I think about, there's always a joke in my world of counseling where, you know, when you're single, you cannot wait to get married. And when you're married, you're just dying to have kids. And when you're married with kids, you can't wait to be single. There's just always that sense of like, we want something that we don't have. We want to go backwards. To be 15 again. Or, I'm 15, I want to be 21, or I want to be 4. And we begin to kind of want to be somewhere we're not. This conversation is about being in the season we're in.
Right.
And embracing it. There's so much there waiting for you.
Well, and if we are going to fully embrace a season, then you bring up a really good point with always wanting to be at the next spot because we maybe see the best things that we think are going to be waiting for us there. But really where we are brings both hard things and beautiful things. And we miss some of those things in our basket if we're constantly looking ahead.
I would agree.
And not living in the moment, right? And both make us better. all good things are all bad things. There needs to be that balance of both, and embracing both the hard things about this season and the really beautiful things about this season. Embracing both make a big difference.
I'm curious. Obviously, you said I'm allowed to say that you are about to turn 61.
I am. I am.
So you are in our season template, right between the season of influence and the season of investment. So you are about to step into the season of investment while still having tremendous influence in the lives of so many people in this season of influence. You talked about the hard, you talked about the beautiful, though the hard can be beautiful, but did you have a favorite season?
I think I have to be honest. Where I am right now is a sweet spot because I look back. I think part of navigating every season successfully is asking yourself as early in your life as you can, why am I here? And I think in my late 20s, early 30s, I answered that question for myself in that I am here to learn to love more. So now I have a North Star. Now, everything else in these seasons, the decisions that I make, the way that I live relationships with other people, the way that I make decisions about career, about so many things in my life, even finances, are about loving more. If I believe that my soul is here to learn to love more, then I'm going to navigate that space a little bit differently. Now, other people will have other North Stars, and I can only bring my personal experience and my personal philosophy to this discussion because that's the life I've lived. But when I looked at life with I'm here to love more, then when I get to this spot where I do have wisdom and things to contribute, my grandkids, I can impart to them that love, that unconditional love that supports them in wherever they are, that says you have strengths yet to be discovered, right? And to love my husband more, to love my family more. My mom is in the later part of the season that I'm entering. She's going to be 85 and battling a long 5 years with cancer, just recently had a heart attack. And yet her perspective is always one of patience, of being positive, of walking hand in hand with her Lord. And to watch that end of that season, to be at the beginning of the season and then to see that perspective is truly a blessing. I'm in a sweet spot right here in life where I can give so much to others. And if my perspective is to learn to love more, it gives me so much opportunity to do that.
Well, and I'm guessing you spent time in the first and second season to hit this sweet spot toward the end of your season of influence to say, I mean, you use the term that I like to use, and that's what the season of influence should be, is hitting that sweet spot. But let's just clarify here. There is no sweet spot without a North Star.
I think you're right.
There is no sweet spot without a mission statement, a clear sense of what is my mission. You know, I think ultimately everyone's asking three questions. Whether we do it consciously or subconsciously, there's three questions that every human being is wrestling with. You shared one of them. Why am I here? But also, where did I come from? Why am I here? And where am I going? Questions of origin, questions of purpose, and questions of ultimate destination. And those are just underlying kind of the human spirit, how we think about the big questions of life. But in many ways, it sounds like you answered the North Star question during the season of investigation.
I did.
Which then allows you to frame the rest of investigation plus influence plus now stepping into the season of investment, which I think is amazing. So I just want to be clear with our viewers and listeners, to have a sweet spot, to be in that season of influence, somewhere early on in the 20s and the 30s and maybe early 40s, you need to decide, who am I going to become and what is my purpose on this planet? That said, I'm also curious. I said, what's your favorite season? Did you have a most difficult? I would say what's the one you like the least, but you're the kind of person who has a great perspective, so you're going to see the good in everything. But was there one where you're like, man, that was so hard? And which one was that?
Yeah, that was investigation, where we started out with a set of twins. I was in a social work career that I loved, and I had to make some really tough choices personally to leave that career, to go to build a business with my sister, because in the beginning, in the infancy of that business, it gave me extra time to invest in my kids. So everybody has to navigate that space on their own too. There are a million different ways to write the right answer, but I personally knew that I needed to pull back from a career that I was overcommitted to, and that I needed to reroute that. Now, the part that was tough about that for me was that I was writing a lot of my own self-definition, which is a pitfall in investigation, right? I was defining myself by my social work career, defining myself by how I was helping others, right? And so I had to step back out of that and say, if I peel that away, I did that. And then my kids' nursery was my old art studio in my home. So I packed up my art supplies and put them in a box, and I shut down my career. And I brought these two babies into my life that did nothing but cry for the first 2 months. And so that was hard.
Oh, yeah.
That was hard to rewrite who am I as I am exhausted, as I have stripped away two of the very important ways that I define who I am. And how do I rewrite that? That was a hard place for me. And that's part of where I think I'm here to love more really started to resonate. Okay, if I'm going to do that, then I need to build a new definition based on what has been put before me in the moment, and how can I learn to love more in this hard space?
So to embrace that particular season at that particular time required a tremendous amount of tenacity, perseverance, and just grit.
It did.
To say, I'm going to, because you, it sounds like some of us, and I'm sure some of our viewers and listeners can relate, some of us are probably putting up with the season we're in. I'm just putting up with it until I can get to the next season. But that's what's so fascinating about you, Kathy Wilhelm. And I want to kind of begin to turn it, is I've gotten to know you, because I didn't get to know you, and we didn't become friends, and our families didn't become friends until you were probably more than halfway through the season of influence. And even now, at 60 years old, soon to be 61 years old, you are taking on new opportunities. You're building a new trajectory. You are experimenting, being adventurous. I mean, you joined the DMB coaching team. You are now a life coach, and you're an executive coach, and you're working in corporate America side by side with me. And it's just watching you almost reinvent yourself, or at least that's probably the wrong term, because you've always been that person, the helping, loving person, but you're taking on new opportunities.
I am. And that being able to hold that kind of possibility at this point in my life is super exciting, super energizing. And I see myself growing in ways that I never really imagined that I would, Michael.
So you're not wrapping things up.
No.
You're not writing the final pages. You're just writing the next chapter. And there's probably many more chapters to come. And I guess for those of our listeners, and I don't know, if there happen to be any 70, 80, or 90-year-olds listening to Three Words Podcast today, I hope so. And to be able to say, you know what? Not that we're even close to 70, 80, or 90. Forgive me if I'm inferring that. But just be like, no, even then, I want to be 80 years old.
Yeah.
And still saying, what's the next mountain to climb?
Right.
And I want to be 90 years old and literally climb the next mountain. I want to be 100 years old and still be saying, what is an investment, to use that fourth season language, what is an investment I can make in these final years that are going to give back to the world and make the world a better place while, and you said it, you're still growing? Right. Because isn't there that sense it 60, 70, 80, it's when we kind of wind down. It's when we stop growing and we enjoy all the, growth is hard and painful and tough. So now I'm done growing. I'm just ready to kind of, like you said, coast, or just relax, or just kind of be.
Sit in my comfort zone, right?
But see,
sit in my comfort zone. That's a dangerous spot to be in, Michael.
And even the sitting,
to just dwell there.
And even the comfort zone, it becomes uncomfortable when you sit in a comfort zone way too long. So you now, obviously, you're still running that business.
We are.
And you are then also kind of spanning out and also doing now executive coaching and speaking and consulting and podcasting.
A little bit here and there.
And so, I'm inspired. I'm inspired and go, this is this. And that's why I said at the very beginning, my friend, my colleague, and my mentor, because you are ahead of me in this, now stepping into the season of investment. And I need people like that, because I'm going to be honest with you, Kathy. People will ask me oftentimes, who are your mentors? Who are your heroes? Who are the people you look to? And quite honestly, there's not a lot of folks who are older than me who are still running hard, fighting tenaciously, wanting to climb the next mountain. And so it's hard to know, does anyone do that? Because it seems like everyone just begins to settle. And I don't want to settle.
No.
And you're not settling.
No, I am not. No, I am not. Like I said, that trajectory goes straight up. And if you embrace the full opportunity of learning and growing from others in knowledge, podcasts and books, you have a little bit more time for those things, right? When you're not running to ballet practice and making meals for, a whole bunch of high school kids that are going to drop in your kitchen. That's a wonderful season too. But being able to embrace the fact that you can grow in some of those ways a little easier, maybe, with more time, but using that time wisely to grow, to move forward, to be more and to be better, so that when you invest in those around you, you bring more to the table. But it's so personally rewarding to know that to my last day, I can continue to grow, continue to change, continue to evolve.
And there's work to be done in all four seasons. There's lessons to be learned in all four seasons. There's growth to happen in all four seasons. So share with us final words, final thoughts about this idea of embracing your season that might be helpful for our viewers, our listeners who would find themselves in any of the four seasons of their life.
Love where you are. Plant your feet there. And fully experience and breathe in everything that life gives you in that particular space. But as quickly as you can, find your North Star. And while your feet are firmly grounded where you are, keep your eyes on your North Star so that those decisions all make sense at the end. And you know that you have found the correct perspective, the correct North Star. When you think at the end of my life, if I keep my eyes on that star, will I be proud of the journey that I've made? Will the journey be productive? We're going to make mistakes. That's all part of learning. So will I be in the place that I want to be at the end of my life by keeping my eyes on that North Star? And if I continue to grow towards that by falling down and by standing up, then will my life have the meaning that I wanted it to when I started at the beginning of this journey?
Well,
will my soul grow?
Well said, Kathy. So you keep fighting and you keep growing and you keep learning, because I'm going to join you in the fourth season here in a couple of years. And you will be my mentor and you will lead me. You'll be my guide through the fourth season, and we will do it climb mountains and conquer great feats together. And it's a pleasure being with you. Not often enough in the Three Words Podcast studio, but I'm glad that our friendship is continuing to grow and we're continuing to do fun things together to make the world a better place outside of this studio. So thanks for being in the studio today and for having a very real and honest conversation with all of us.
Thank you so much, Michael, for celebrating the fact that I'm a little bit older than episode 15, so I could bring a little bit more to the table. Thanks.
It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed spending time with Kathy and I today in the Three Words Podcast studio, obviously virtually. It was a great conversation with my friend Kathy, and I hope that you were inspired as I was. That said, if you would like to be more connected to DMB Coaching and receive material and curriculum and content and new ideas about how to continue to grow and develop in each of those four seasons of your life, can I invite you to go to dmbcoaching.com/subscribe and subscribe to our digital newsletter. Every month, we're sending out new free content to those who are partnering, who are journeying with us, and really in hopes of making the world a better place. That said, we'll see you in a couple weeks, and until then, be safe and be well.